Hey guys, this is a little video I'm doing for you for chapter 9. This will just be about the first part tonight with going up through 240. I need to do more of these for you guys in the future, so let's just start here. This is the beginning of chapter 9, the rise of mass politics. I actually might go a little further into our federal union and the main part highlights here for chapter 9. But before I start, what do you think is sitting next to me on the table at my house? Any guesses? Think about it. Think about the time of year it is, and think about that I got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old at home, and they're very excited for this. You want to see? Or should I wait? Let's show you. I have 10 pumpkins sitting next to me, and 2 of them have pretty scary faces on. Yeah, that's what I deal with at home at night. Okay, moving on. So Jackson. We're going to look this week about comparing Andrew Jackson to Thomas Jefferson, and how are they similar? What were they different? What were their beliefs for society, the common man, Native Americans, all of those things, and kind of to what extent did the election of 1824 and 1828 kind of have a turning point in the American political culture, especially with the corrupt bargain that we will talk some more about this week. But first off, moving forward here, Jackson's inaugural, he was kind of a president for the common man. He wanted universal male suffrage. He was a strict constructionalist. Do we know what suffrage is? Let me go back to that real quick. It's voting rights. Strict constructionalism, laissez-faire on politics and economics, was really wanted to increase the local and state elected offices, kind of give a rise to a new third party. And then he was a big proponent of the West and the idea of putting his friends into office through the spoils system. So while this was going on everywhere, women could not vote. That was still very much the policy around the country during Jackson's tenure. Excuse me. So expanding the democracy here, the rise of mass politics, and higher levels of voter participation came out due to the expanded electorate, but was also strengthening the party organizational and loyalty. And if you see here, in the years of 1824, we only had about 30%, less than 30% of people that could vote in the election. Then it goes up to 57, and then the high one is 1860, where 81% of all eligible voters were able to vote in elections. Let me go back. Parties would check and balance each other, one another. Politicians were forced to rep with the people, and by the late 1820s, the new idea of the parties was spreading beyond New York, and Jackson's 1828 election seemed to be legitimize the new system. And by 1830s, the national two-party system, which anti-Jackson forces called Whigs, were followed by with Democrats as well. But moving on to the presidency of the common man. The Democratic Party embraced no uniform ideological position and were committed to offer equal protection and benefits by assaulting the Eastern rich, Eastern wealth, and to expand the opportunity of the rising classes of the western part of the country and the southern part, while trying to preserve all white male democracy through subjugation of African Americans and Indians. And you'll see what happens here with Indians, the Native Americans here in a couple slides. Jackson's first targets were to entrench office holders in the federal government. He wanted to simplify the official duties to make office more accessible. He removed nearly a fifth of all office holders because of misuse of government funds, and then obviously there was corruption a part of that as well. He supported the spoils system, making right of elected officials to appoint followers to office and establish future in American politics. His supporters worked to transform the presidential nomination system, and in 1832, the National Party convention held to replace the congressional caucuses and considered a democratic triumph because of the power from the people and not the aristocratic caucuses that were mainly held on the eastern seaboard. With the spoils system, the convention limited power of the entrenched elites, permanent office holders, but neither really transferred power to the people. Nullification. This is an interesting part of our history and kind of the beginning of what we see as the beginnings of the Civil War. In the late 1820s, many people in South America came to see the Tariff of Abominations in 1828 as responsible for the stagnation of the state economy, and really due to the exhausted farmland that was unable to compete with the new western lands. Some considered the remedy through secession. Sorry, I was thirsty. Vice President Calhoun, John C. Calhoun, who is this guy right here, and I have to say, ugly man. Vice President Calhoun offered the alternative to the theory of nullification, idea like Madison and Jefferson's Kentucky and Virginia resolutions of the late 1790s. He argued that the federal government created by the states, therefore the states should be the final arbiter, not Congress or the courts, of the constitutionality of a law. And the convention could be held to nullify or void all laws within a given state. So basically the people of South Carolina said if the law goes bad, it goes bad against the people of South Carolina, we should have the right to nullify it and disagree with it. The Webster-Hayne debate in 1830 was a proposal to temporarily stop Western land sales led by Senator from South Carolina Robert Hayne, to claim slowing down the Western growth means for East to retain political and economic power. And this is kind of the beginning of the sectional differences between the South and the West now. Nationalists like Whig Party leaders Daniel Webster attacked Hayne and Calhoun for challenging the integrity of the Union, and debate ensued over the issue of state rights again versus national power, so who has more control. And Jackson announced the Democratic Party banquet that our federal union, it must be preserved, and lines were drawn between Jackson and Calhoun, and Jackson was not a fan of Calhoun for the most part. The crisis itself. In 1832, the tariff bill in Congress gave South Carolina no relief from the Tariff of Abominations, and the state convention held and voted to nullification of tariffs of 1828 and 1832 and duties collection within the state. Calhoun resigned to become resigned the VP becomes Calhoun resigned the VP and became senator, and Hayne was now the governor. Jackson insisted nullification treason and strengthened federal forts in South Carolina. In 1833, proposed a bill to authorize the use of military to see the acts of Congress be obeyed. No states supported South Carolina. The state itself was divided in its own, and the state convention met and repealed its nullification of the tariffs, but also nullified the Force Act, which was a symbol of the legacy of nullification. Go through that. Okay, real quickly here. The removal of the Native Americans. In the 18th century, many white considered the natives considered the Indians noble savages who were inherent dignity. By the 19th century, more hostile attitudes, especially among those in the West and the territories, are simply just called savages. White Westerners wanted its removal because they feared continued contact and expanding white settlements would also lead to endless violence, and Indian land was very valuable to the white man moving west. The only federal government had the power to deal with the Indians after the Supreme Court decisions, and the Indians created new large political entities to deal with the whites. And this is where you see Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, which basically determined that tribes were not to be foreign states, but as domestic dependent nations. And then also in Worcester versus Georgia, that determined the sovereignty of the native tribes, therefore not subject to state laws. The Trail of Tears was forced trek by the Indian Territory, began in the winter of 1838. And this is where he moved. Andrew Jackson basically took 5 tribes: the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the the Creek, and the Seminole Indians, and basically moved them west out of Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama area, and moved them west to the Oklahoma Territory. Cherokees were not alone. Only the Seminoles in Florida resisted relocation, and under pressure had to agree to secede land and move to Indian Territory. But many members of the tribe ended up moving out west further. But in 1835, minority leader Chief Osceola staged an uprising, and Jackson sent an army, conducted the campaign of a systematic extermination, but successful guerrilla warfare forced the government to abandon the war in 1842. And basically, we sent thousands westward in the forced the trek of Indian territory, and thousands died before destination, dubbed as the Trail of Tears. And this was kind of what he is most known for, most well known for, Jackson, that is, for doing what he did to the Native Americans. You can see here on the map, and this is also in your book, where they moved to basically present-day Oklahoma Territory. All right, we will stop there for right now. We will talk about the Bank War later. See you later.